Good morning. The Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation will come to order. I want to welcome two of our colleagues, Senator Risch, Senator Kelly. We're glad to have you both joining us in this committee, at least for a few moments at the opening. Today, we will be hearing from four nominees. Stephen Carmel, nominee for Administrator of the U.S. Maritime Administration. Laura DiBella and Robert Harvey, nominees for Commissioners of the Federal Maritime Commission. And Timothy Petty, nominee for Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere and Deputy Administrator of the National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration. Congratulations to each of you. Let's begin with Mr. Petty, who would serve as Deputy Administrator of NOAA. A geoscientist and an engineer, Mr. Petty has spent more than 2 decades on Capitol Hill, where he is currently a senior professional staff member for the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. During the first Trump administration, Mr. Petty served as Assistant Secretary for Water and Science in the Department of the Interior. As second in command at NOAA, he will draw on his policy expertise to manage U.S. fisheries programs and to protect coastal and ocean resources. Next are the 2 Republican nominees for the Federal Maritime Commission, Laura DiBella and Robert Harvey. Ms. DiBella previously served as Port Director of the Port of Fernandina, Executive Director of the Florida Harbor Pilots Association, and head of Florida's state-level economic development organization. Mr. Harvey is an attorney with 30-plus years navigating complex regulatory schemes and promoting economic development. A former U.S. Navy JAG officer, he currently leads 2 public economic development corporations in Florida. And finally, Stephen Carmel, who will draw on decades of experience to advise the Secretary of Transportation on federal maritime policy as Administrator of the Maritime Administration. A graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, Mr. Carmel served on U.S. vessels as a deck officer and shipmaster before joining Maersk Line Limited, the largest operator of U.S. flagged ships. He is well-versed in maritime operations and security, having sat on the Board of Advisors for the Merchant Marine Academy and the Chief of Naval Operations Executive Panel. Mr. Carmel will support Secretary Duffy's efforts to fortify U.S. maritime security, shipbuilding, and infrastructure. Like our nominee, I am concerned that China's maritime industrial base dwarfs our own. That's why I look forward to the administration's forthcoming Maritime Action Plan, which will address this geopolitical challenge. At the same time, I continue to believe we need a maritime strategy focused on attracting capital and removing regulatory barriers, not simply picking winners and losers. American shipyards can compete globally without heavy-handed protectionism, but only if they lean into nascent industries like seabed mining and nuclear-powered shipping, not those where we're at a distinct comparative disadvantage. Thank you to our nominees for joining us today. I'm eager to hear how each of you will approach federal maritime policy. And with that, I recognize Ranking Member Cantwell for her opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Carmel, Ms. DiBella, Mr. Harvey, Mr. Petty, congratulations on your nominations. And it's good to see our 2 colleagues here, Senator Risch and Senator Kelly. And I certainly have enjoyed working with Dr. Petty and Senator Risch on the Columbia River Treaty for many years. So I know firsthand of his legislative skill set. So congratulations on this nomination. Today, we want to discuss the concrete steps our nation is taking to invest in our shipyards, our ports, our workforce, and the efforts to build new, larger ships in the United States. These investments aren't just important international trade issues for the United States. These are the kinds of investments that are needed to build our future maritime workforce, our economy, and support our national defense. The good news is there is a strong bipartisan support on this committee for American shipbuilding, but we need to ensure that these investments that we authorize will be implemented by this administration. I look forward to discussing with the nominees here how we can accomplish that. Mr. Carmel certainly enjoyed our conversation yesterday. Truly believe that you have a vision for what needs to happen, and I appreciate that. You are nominated to be the administrator of the U.S. Maritime Administration, the agency responsible for fostering, promoting, and developing the U.S. maritime industry. And you clearly have relevant experience, just starting at the the Merchant Marine Academy and continuing as a deck officer, master on a U.S. flag vessels, and your senior positions at Maersk. So certainly believe that you have a keen view of what needs to be done. I believe this experience will serve you well, and I know that you've expressed concerns about the deterioration of the U.S. maritime, as you call it, ecosystem. I share that word. It is an ecosystem. And just like other ecosystems we've had to invest in, I look forward to asking you questions about how critical that is for supply chain issues for the United States of America when supply chain issues have become a dominant issue. I think COVID proved that to us, and now we have to think about it as it relates to very strategic assets and resources. Senator Risch and I have been partners on a fusion strategy, and certainly fusion is one of those issues where the supply chain will be critical. Next, Ms. DiBella and Mr. Harvey, it is good to have you here at the committee, and I see that we have two other Federal Maritime Commissioners here, so thank you guys. Oh, three, sorry, thank you for that. Can't see everything, thank you. This speaks to the Commission's important jurisdiction over ports and international ocean shipping, and charged with the protection and interest of U.S. shipping and regulating licenses. So the FMC, while not a household word, it is certainly playing a pivotal role for us, as again we saw during COVID. Importantly, Congress created the Federal Maritime Commission, and I expect commissioners to maintain this independence. That is to say, despite various administrations' efforts to undermine the agency, we want it to continue to remain strong. Ms. DiBella, your service as the first female Secretary of Commerce for the state of Florida and your tenure as Executive Director of the Florida Harbor Pilots Association certainly come with some very relevant experience, and I appreciate that. Mr. Harvey, I haven't had a chance to visit with you, so I look forward to hearing more about your Navy JAG experience, and I hope you'll address your view about the federal FMC this morning and what you think needs to happen. But I would say to you is that we need to continue to be proactive, that as a more global economy and economic opportunities are outside the United States, and so much of the concentration is with foreign carriers. Now we're going to lean on Mr. Carmel to help change that. But in the meantime, how do we make sure that there are fair policies and that the Commission is doing its job in protecting consumers? We do not want U.S. shippers' product left on docks. We don't want unfair practices, and we certainly don't want unfair rates. Finally, Mr. Petty, as I already mentioned, I'm happy to have worked with you in the past on this important issue of the Columbia River Treaty. Congratulations on the nomination to the NOAA Assistant Secretary for Commerce. If confirmed, you will be responsible for fisheries, habitat, climate resilience, and many other issues. And I believe that your experience up here on the Hill will serve you well. I hope to hear from you how you will succeed in this environment, especially when it comes to the essential work that NOAA does, supporting healthy fisheries, the 2.3 million jobs that depend on a seafood industry, and the important issues of stock assessment. I think this committee has been very, very loud and clear about the importance of stock assessment. You can't catch fish if you haven't done the stock assessment, and we need the fisheries to continue to work. This requires providing NOAA with expertise and resources, and NOAA has lifted the hiring freeze for some weather personnel, but what about fisheries personnel? If we need to get the stock assessments done, we need the personnel to do them. So I know my colleague, Senator Sullivan, when he's here, will agree with this. When it comes to protecting our coastal economies, scientists are not optional. Let's not forget the president proposed a 27% cut to NOAA's budget, and the agency has lost at least 576 fishery staffers, nearly 1 in 5 under this administration. So I'm very, very concerned about that. They're seeing real impacts from this. For instance, a number of our stock assessments in New England have been canceled this year. A 60-day regulatory freeze led to the overfishing of the Atlantic bluefin tuna off North Carolina. And in my state, salmon are incredibly important economically and culturally, and so we depend on NOAA for this long-term sustainability. So I look forward to asking you questions about that and what you can do to help correct these issues at the department. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, look forward to the testimony of all the witnesses and, of course, our colleagues who are here to sing praises on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cantwell. I will now turn to our colleague from the great state of Arizona, Senator Kelly, to introduce Mr. Carmel. Senator Kelly, welcome back to the Commerce Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today on the nomination of Steve Carmel to serve as the Administrator of the Maritime Administration. As I know this committee is painfully aware, the U.S. maritime industry needs a lot of help. Right now, the U.S. federal government, mostly through the Navy and the Coast Guard, is the primary customer of large, and in the case of the Coast Guard, not so large, ocean-going vessels built in U.S. shipyards. And there are only about 80 ships out of more than 50,000 globally that fly the U.S. flag in international commerce. By contrast, China has 5,500 ocean-going merchant vessels that operate under the Chinese flag. And 3 in every 4 commercial ships built in the next decade will be built in a Chinese shipyard if we don't do something about it. For decades, both political parties have made the failed assumption that we could build our way out of this deficit by just giving the Navy and the Coast Guard additional funding year to year, and not by actually rethinking how we make the commercial maritime industry commercially viable in the United States. We need to do both. We need policy solutions that include the private sector, and that's why I'm here to support Steve Carmel's nomination for Maritime Administrator. Unlike his immediate predecessors in this job, Steve will bring 4 decades of experience working in the commercial maritime industry. Steve and I both attended the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Not at the same time, but we were also both in 6 Company. After graduating, Steve served aboard U.S.-flagged merchant vessels as a deck officer and a master for the Maritime Overseas Corporation and Military Sealift Command. He became a master, which is the captain of the ship, at just 26 years old. And for those who don't know the industry well, that is incredibly fast. He's a talented guy. After a decade at sea, he transitioned to work ashore for Maersk Line Limited and U.S. Marine Management. At a time when we are facing a shortage of qualified mariners, Steve brings firsthand knowledge of what it's like to work at sea. He would be the first administrator in 20 years to hold an unlimited master's license. At a time when we need to incentivize ship owners from around the world to invest in the U.S. flag fleet and U.S. shipyards, Steve will bring a private sector perspective to our efforts to rebuild the U.S. maritime industry. Steve understands we need to reform outdated regulations and find innovative strategies to put more cargo on U.S. vessels, U.S. flag vessels. At a time when there is bipartisan momentum to rebuild America's maritime industry as indicated by both the Ships for America Act and President Trump's executive order on maritime dominance, we need leaders at MARAD who can hit the ground running on day one. And I believe Steve Carmel is the right leader for this moment and can do that. I know that he will demonstrate his thoughtfulness and depth of knowledge of the industry at today's hearing, and I hope his nomination will be quickly advanced. We need him in this job. The motto at Kings Point, our alma mater, is acta non verba, deeds not words. Steve is a leader of action, and it's my pleasure to introduce him to the committee today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kelly, and I appreciate your bringing a little bit of Latin into this hearing. That is a level of erudition we try to avoid in the Senate Commerce Committee. I now welcome our colleague from the great state of Idaho, Senator Risch, to introduce Dr. Petty. Senator Risch, welcome to the Commerce Committee.
speaker isn't working here. We do things a little different in my committee. You know, we usually test the equipment before we start, but in any event, it doesn't want to work. So, but you can hear me. You can hear me from there. All right, this one's working. Well, thank you, Chairman Cruz and Ranking Member Cantwell. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak here today. It's a real honor and privilege, personally, to introduce Dr. Tim Petty, who's been nominated to be Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere. Tim was an integral part and member of my staff for many years and continues to be a trusted friend. And in addition to that, he comes in from time to time and keeps me up to date on things that are happening that are in his lane, and I truly appreciate that. Tim brings a deep and informed understanding of the complex intersection between water policy and scientific research through a rare combination of technical expertise and legislative experience in both houses. Tim's experiences as a senior legislative staff in both chambers give him holistic understanding of various water and natural resource challenges and a long history of working with his colleagues on a bipartisan basis to solve problems. He's also served under both President Bush and President Trump at the Department of Interior, including serving as President Trump's first term as the Assistant Secretary for Water and Science, a post he was confirmed by the Senate unanimously to. In his role, he oversaw the USGS and the Bureau of Reclamation, solving Western water issues and collaborating on an interagency basis with the U.S. Army Corps and NOAA. Particularly close to home for Ranking Member Cantwell and I, both, Tim has specific experience working in the Columbia River Basin. We have an issue there right now that is incredibly important to both Senator Cantwell and I and our constituents in the region. And as I said, it is bipartisan and it is incredibly important. In his last stint at the agency, he represented Interior as part of the United States negotiating entity for the Columbia River Treaty and worked with Senator Cantwell and I, both as we represented the Northwest in the Senate through treaty negotiations. These have been long, dare I say, Senator Cantwell, and difficult and complex. I think we're actually seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. There's starting to be some movement, and Senator Cantwell and I have worked on this for years and years. We have been ably guided by Tim, who's helped us through these very complex web of negotiations. In addition to his extraordinary qualifications, what cannot be overstated is his character. Tim is a true public servant and has answered the call time and again to give his time and talent to the American people. Having worked closely with Tim since I came to the Senate, I can confidently say he brings thoughtful, measured judgment to every issue he encounters, treats others with respect, and approaches leadership roles with humility. Tim has built a distinguished career in public service and is exceptionally well prepared to serve as the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere. His expertise and experience will be an incredible asset to the Department of Commerce and to our country. Again, Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, thank you for the committee's consideration and considering Tim Petty's nomination. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Risch, and I certainly appreciated the movie reference to A Few Good Men as you looked up like Jack Nicholson and said, what kind of shoddy operation are you running here with microphones that don't operate? And
I was more diplomatic than that.
you know, we can't handle the truth. I will say 4 staffers have lost their job already in the time since you said that. I now recognize Mr. Carmel for his opening statement.
Thank you, and thank you to Senator Kelly for the kind introduction. Good morning, Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I am honored to appear before you as nominee for the position of Maritime Administrator. Please permit me to introduce my wife, Allison, a Navy veteran from a long line of Coast Guard officers, and our son, John and Greg, who are with me today. I graduated from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, class of '79, and went to sea immediately thereafter. I sailed steadily, earned my master's license, and I commanded ships that sailed every corner of the world. My time at sea was marked by many more highlights than I could recount here, but perhaps the most meaningful was my service in the Arctic an experience that sparked a lifelong fascination with that region and inspired much of my later academic work. After coming ashore, I held a variety of executive positions with Maersk Line Limited, the U.S. flag subsidiary of the world's largest shipping companies, and later president of U.S. Marine Management, my current position, following our acquisition by Maritime Partners, a leading Jones Act provider of vessel leasing and construction financing. I also returned to graduate school and collected a few extra initials along the way. Throughout my shoreside career, I and my colleagues have faced many challenges, ranging from 2 Middle East wars to complex logistics supporting operations in Afghanistan, revolts in Angola, inland grain moves in Russia, piracy off Somalia's coast, and even an earthquake and nuclear disaster in Japan. Those experiences taught me many things. 2 lessons stand out. First, maritime strength depends on people, and it must be built long before a crisis occurs. And leadership is about execution, accountability, and partnership. I have been fortunate to work both at sea and ashore alongside some of the finest men and women this country has to offer. And I am very proud of all that we accomplished together. But now, if given the honor of a confirmation, it's time to take up a new challenge. We are a formidable naval power, but we are not a true maritime power. For more than 150 years, we have searched for maritime policy that works, even as our industrial capacity has declined to a point of near irrelevance, both in our ability to carry our own commerce and the ability to build ships that do it. We have outsourced those capabilities, and we have sacrificed much of our independence in the process. A strong maritime sector is not nostalgia, it's strategy. It means resilient supply chains we control, credible logistics for our joint forces, good jobs across our coasts, rivers, and Great Lakes, and the freedom to move what America needs, when and where America needs it, under our own flag. We have done hard things before. With this commission's guidance and in partnership with labor and industry, we can do them again. We will not be the generation that stood on the sidelines and passively watched our noble industry die. We will be the generation that rebuilds it, stronger, smarter, and ready to answer the call. If confirmed, I will work in spirit of partnership to meet our challenges and overcome them, uphold the traditions of my alma mater, and live by its motto, at the risk of Senator Kelly's repeating them, acta non verba, deeds, not words. Thank you, and I stand by for your questions.
Thank you. I now recognize Ms. DiBella for her opening.
Chair Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and members of the committee, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to appear here before you today as a nominee to be Commissioner of the Federal Maritime Commission. A sincere thank you as well for the courtesies that your staff extended to me throughout the nomination process. I would like to recognize FMC Commissioners Dye, Maffei, and Vekich and thank them for being here in support of attendance. And most importantly, I would like to thank President Trump for nominating me for this most important role. It is with great pleasure, humility, and honor to be nominated for this position, as well as a homecoming of sorts to the maritime industry for me. In 2017, while spearheading local economic development in Nassau County, Florida, I was approached to wear a second hat and stand in temporarily as port director at the Port of Fernandina, a small and often overlooked seaport surrounded by renowned juggernauts named Jacksport and the Port of Savannah. The port was going through a rough transition and had little resources to spare for a qualified port director. I knew very little about ports back then, except for the fact that they were vital economic engines to a region and state. And because of that, and without hesitation and compensation, I willingly took on the role. Little did I know at the time that the decision to support the port was one that would change the trajectory of my life and career forever. What began as a temporary assignment resulted in a 2.5-year journey that put me at ground zero of seaport operations, port authority governance, and the integration of a port within the economic development space and overall supply chain network. The knowledge I gained while serving dual roles greatly enhanced my economic development capabilities and afforded me the opportunity to form lasting relationships with past and present, and hopefully future, members of the Maritime Administration team and that of the maritime community at large. In the fall of 2019, I was approached about the executive director role for the Florida Harbor Pilots Association, a full-time position that never existed in the organization's 150-plus year history, that put the livelihoods of Florida's nearly 100 harbor pilots in my hands. I drove headfirst into the job and learned at the most intimate level about an aspect of the maritime industry that very few outsiders have the privilege of seeing. Before long, we were met with the COVID-19 pandemic shutdown, which dealt a massive blow to Florida as the self-proclaimed cruise capital of the world, with a cessation of cruise activity for nearly a year and a half and resulting supply chain crisis, which upended their world and exposed every element of the fragile transportation network that we rely upon day in and day out. If that wasn't enough, we were heavily engaged in blocking a potentially precedent-setting citizens' initiative at the Port of Key West that could have had broad implications around the restriction of cargo across other seaports around the country and world. The measure served as a stark reminder that ports, although local in nature, are truly global in principle and must be viewed and protected as such. In the summer of 2022, I was appointed Secretary of Commerce of Florida, along with President and CEO of Enterprise Florida, and entrusted with maintaining and growing what was then the state's $1.5 trillion economy. And once again, had the pleasure of working with all 16 of Florida's seaports in a larger economic development capacity. As the third largest state in the nation and 16th largest economy in the world, it was then that I also engaged heavily in international trade discussions with key trading partners around the globe, as well as economic development efforts involving the newest mode of transportation to intersect with maritime, which is the incredibly exciting space industry. I say all of this in the hopes to demonstrate not only my hands-on experience, knowledge, and unique perspective of the maritime space, but also my sincere passion and commitment to the industry. If my past superiors had enough faith in me to not only do the job at hand, but do it well, I hope so can you. More than anything, however, I hope my past shows just how dedicated I am to the economic and security interests of this great country. If I am confirmed as Commissioner of the FMC, I will uphold the statutory directives of the Ocean Shipping Reform Act of 2022 and ensure that the economic and homeland security needs of our country are always at the forefront of every discussion. I promise to be fair-minded and objective when collaborating with my fellow commissioners and FMC staff to positively contribute to the FMC's vital and growing mission. I will work to eliminate unfair shipping practices by foreign governments and do everything in my power to guarantee that shippers, common carriers, ocean transport intermediaries, and ports regulated by the FMC are provided with a fair market environment in which to operate. Thank you again for the honor and privilege to sit before you today and for your hopeful support. I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. Now recognize Mr. Harvey for his opening statement.
Thank you. Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and members of the committee, it is an honor to appear before you today as a nominee to be Commissioner of the Federal Maritime Commission. I also want to thank your respective staff for all their efforts and the professionalism shown to me during the nomination process. I would like to thank Commissioners Dye, Vekich, and Maffei for meeting with me during the confirmation process and attending today's hearing. I would like to recognize my wife, Deborah Jenks, who has been my law partner, is my life partner, and has fully supported me in my desire to return to public service. Finally, I would like to thank President Trump for the honor of nominating me today. If confirmed, I look forward to continuing the important work of the FMC at this critical time for the United States ocean transportation system and supply chain. I will work to ensure that the FMC maintains a competitive and reliable international ocean transportation system and protects U.S. consumers, exporters, and importers from unlawful, unfair, and deceptive ocean transportation practices. For the past 3 years, I have been engaged in multiple economic development roles in Florida. With 1,300 miles of coastline, 16 public seaports, and 7 cruise ports, I have gained an even greater appreciation for the maritime industry. While I am a proud Floridian, I was born, raised, and educated in Illinois. The first waterborne commerce I ever saw was barge traffic containing agriculture, coal, and bulk goods floating on the Des Plaines River through the middle of my hometown, Joliet. The first large bulk carrier I ever saw was the Laker. The Great Lakes shipping industry supports tens of thousands of jobs directly and is a vital economic engine for the cities, towns, and people of the region. If confirmed, I look forward to ensuring fair conditions for all U.S. shipping. I began my career with the U.S. Navy, where I served on active duty as a Navy Judge Advocate and Special Assistant U.S. Attorney. After leaving active duty, I served in the reserves with Amphibious Group 2 in Little Creek, Virginia, and with the U.S. Naval Forces, Europe, and London. One of the lessons learned from my time in the Navy is that economic security and national security are inseparable. After leaving active duty, I began my civilian law career in private practice. After 2 years, I had the opportunity to join a startup. Not knowing what a startup was, I leapt at the opportunity, moved to New York City, and ultimately became the Senior Vice President and General Counsel. After being with that company for 7 years and a successful exit, I have served in various roles in law, business, finance, and public service. Most recently, I have been a partner of Jason Harvey law firm in West Palm Beach, where my practice was concentrated in securities litigation, arbitration, and regulation. I returned to the public sector in November 2022 as the General Counsel of Enterprise Florida, Florida's principal economic development organization. Today, I serve as the President and Executive Director of the Florida Opportunity Fund, Florida's venture capital fund. The fund is a $180 million fund investing in Florida-based new technology companies. In terms of the maritime industry, we have invested in cybersecurity companies that protect critical assets, including vessels, ports, and maritime infrastructure. We've invested in companies that fuse real-time data with AI to track maritime emissions, improve operational efficiency at sea and at shore. We have invested in logistics companies which provide multimodal last-mile delivery solutions, which reduces shipping time and costs. Currently, we are reviewing quantum solutions in the maritime industries, enabling potential breakthroughs in route and fleet optimization, sensing and navigation, secure communication, and predictive maintenance. Finally, I also serve as the Executive Director of the Florida Development Finance Corporation. That is the state-authorized issuer of industrial revenue bonds. In the last 2 years, FDIC has issued over $8 billion of tax-exempt, taxable, and private activity bonds. We are currently reviewing several projects where private activity bonds may be used for marine infrastructure, including ports, docks, wharves, and manufacturing. If confirmed, I believe that my over 35 years of experience in the military, legal and regulatory affairs, business, investment, finance, technology, and economic development will allow me to positively contribute to FMC's vital mission. In closing, Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and members of the committee, thank you very much for holding this hearing today.
Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, and distinguished guests and committee members, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I am deeply honored to be nominated by President Trump to serve as the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Ocean and Atmosphere. I want to thank Secretary Lutnick as well for his confidence in me, and again for Senator Risch for his kind introduction, for his steadfast leadership on behalf of the people of Idaho, but also this nation. It is a privilege to be here today, and I respectfully ask for your consideration and consent for my nomination. Before I begin today, I'd like to take a moment and recognize friends and family, but foremost my wife, Elaine, who is sitting behind me here. She has always been a big support and a foundation throughout my journey here in Washington, D.C. My parents and my 4 siblings are watching remotely from the family farms back in Indiana. My mother, Esther, is 93 years old, and my stepfather, Vern, is 97. Their resilience, faith, and work ethic have been a guiding light for me in my life. I was born and raised on a family farm in Grant County, Indiana. Our farm was more than a livelihood. It was a classroom and a place where I learned the values that have shaped my life of hard work, faith, and service. From milking cows before the sun would rise, baling hay in the summer, heat and watching the skies for signs of rain that could make or break a season on the farm. I came to understand the deep connection between people and the land. Our farm bordered rivers and a gravel pit, which sparked my interest and fascination with both water, geology, and the natural systems that support them. That curiosity led me to pursue a science degree at Purdue University. I began my career in private sector, working as a geologist and a hydrogeologist in Indiana, California, and even abroad. And I learned the intricacies of groundwater systems, seismic activity, environment, and fishing. But I also realized that science alone was not enough. I needed sound policy to guide how to manage natural resources. That realization brought me to Washington, D.C., where I joined the Senate staff of Senator Connie Mack, of Senator Rick Santorum, and of course of Senator Risch. During the time in the Senate, I had the privilege of working with many of you members here and your staff, whether it was advancing hydropower legislation, supporting tribal water and right settlements, strengthening our water and infrastructure, and of course the environment. I have seen firsthand the power of collaboration and the importance of science-based policymaking. I later earned my PhD in water resources at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, where I was focused on hydrology and digital transformation. At the Department of the Interior, I was honored to serve twice, first under George W. Bush administration and later again as Assistant Secretary for Water and Science under the Trump administration. In those roles, I provided oversight for the U.S. Geological Survey and the Bureau of Reclamation, managing programs critical to our nation's water security, science, and advancement. These experiences deepened my understanding of the complex interplay between science, policy, and the public service. They also reinforced my belief that effective stewardship of our oceans and atmosphere require not only technical expertise, but collaboration and a commitment to transparency. Most recently, I served in the House of Representatives under Chairman Graves on the Committee of Transportation and Infrastructure. This included work with the Army Corps of Engineers, EPA, and NOAA, and other key agencies. If confirmed, I will bring my full energy, experience, and dedication to advancing NOAA's mission. I will champion innovation, transparency, and collaboration. I will listen to the voices of the scientists, stakeholders, and all the communities involved, and I will work to ensure that our policies are grounded in sound science and guided by the public good. I look forward to supporting NOAA's dedicated workforce and advancing its critical work in ocean research, weather forecasting, fishery monitoring, and environmental resilience. Together, we can ensure that our oceans and atmosphere are managed wisely for today, but also for future generations. Thank you again for your consideration. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. President Trump has been vocal about restoring American maritime dominance. I think most Americans would be disturbed to learn that our ports are light years behind Europe and Asia in using automated technology. You only have to look at the supply chain snarls outside of California's ports from a few years ago to see how poorly our country did at moving cargo quickly from ship to shore. Mr. Carmel, why are American ports so archaic compared to their foreign counterparts?
Thank you, Senator. We are, no question about it, in terms of our ability to productivity behind. There's a variety of reasons, some of which I was just not around for. The real issue, though, at the end of the day, is using technology in a way that leverages labor, makes labor more productive, and allows us to compete at the level of foreign ports. We should use technology in a way that does not displace jobs. We should use technology in a way that enhances them and magnifies them so that workers can be productive. But at the end of the day, it's productivity that we have to deal with.
Is the problem a lack of federal spending or too much red tape and other factors?
I think it's a combination of both. regulations certainly can get in the way, and I think that some of it is just inertia, I think, to be honest with you. So we have to ignite a innovation drive. I know that the SHIPS Act has innovation in it. I know that MARAD has the Maritime Innovation Center. The Waterfront Workers has an innovation section. So there's 3 actual competing programs for innovation. We need to leverage them, make sure that they are used in a way that's synergistic and provide value rather than compete, and find ways to make our workforce productive, make sure that the workforce understands that the waterfront is a good place to have a long, productive career, a good place to raise families, and deal with it that way.
Okay, Mr. Petty. NOAA reviews offshore oil and gas activities for compliance with NEPA, the Endangered Species Act, and the Marine Mammal Protection Act. Key regulations for the incidental take of marine mammals are set to expire in April of 2026. The expiration of these regulations would curtail geophysical activities related to oil and gas exploration and production in the Gulf of America. If confirmed, will you ensure that these incidental take regulations are renewed by April 2026 to prevent any permitting delays?
Chairman, thank you for that question. It's an important one, and we need to make sure that we have the focus on these areas of regulation. I look forward to getting into the department and looking specifically at all the priorities that are set so that what are coming due, that we can address them immediately. The President and the administration, as well as the Secretary, has said that we need to focus on regulatory, making it focused and short so that we can move things but do it right. And that's the commitment that I make, is making sure that the laws are met, but the regulations are quick and decisive and clear moving forward.
Well, and I can certainly echo that it is the President's commitment and Secretary Lutnick's commitment to move swiftly and not to have permitting delays. And so I trust that you, when confirmed, will implement a streamlining to ensure that permitting can move forward efficiently. How do you hope to streamline the environmental permitting process beyond ensuring timely renewal of the incidental take regulations?
Again, I look forward to getting in if confirmed, but streamlining, I think, needs to be a partnership with not only the different agencies that have oversight, not only Commerce, but Interior and other agencies, but they need to be looking at that not in a kind of a rail where it's what goes from one car to the next car to the next, but all tracks are parallel, working together. And I think we can do that with the technology of interacting with the resources of the regulatory, so we can all be looking at them at the same time and moving things much more quickly versus the old method, which is when one packet is done, it gets moved to another committee.
Okay, and this last question is for our 2 Federal Maritime Commission nominees. The Federal Maritime Commission has a narrow mission: ensuring a competitive ocean transportation system. Mr. Harvey, Ms. DiBella, what are the statutory functions of the FMC, and will you commit, if confirmed, to staying within the bounds of your authority? Mr. Harvey, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The statutory commitments are to have a reliable ocean transportation system. I think that we would stay in our lane in terms of our jurisdiction, but we are there to review the agreements that are filed with our agency to assure that those are fair and reasonable and not anti-competitive. We also have a enforcement division, and I believe in regulation to ensure that competitiveness and enforcement when necessary of those. And we have an adjudication process to make sure that all the players in the system can get their disputes resolved quickly. But I would look to stay in our lane, and I would hope to have marketplace solutions to these problems.
Ms. DiBella.
I echo Mr. Harvey's statement, all of it. In taking it a step further, we would work very collaboratively with other agencies, like MARAD and the Surface Transportation Board, whomever would be involved with the matter at hand, in ensuring that the whole system is being addressed. And I think that's the overarching, outside the statutory responsibilities that we have. We're responsible for the entire system to be efficiently and competitive and also reliable. So that is really the crux of the conversation. How do we do that? Is addressing the business needs, either businesses that are looking to that are operating here in the United States, or those that are looking to operate here. And we are functioning as that authority that is responding to their inquiries, to their needs, and then taking action as appropriate. So,
Thank you. Ranking Member Cantwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lots of questions, try to get through as many of them as I can. Mr. Carmel, you support the Jones Act?
Yes, Senator, I do.
Thank you. And thank you for your vision for a maritime nation. You and I had a chance to talk about many issues related to that, shipbuilding, financing. We didn't spend as much time talking in my office, though, about workforce issues. And so I want to bring up, what do you think we need to do to deal with the serious shortage? And clearly, the Senate has been very concerned about sexual assault and sexual crime at sea, passing legislation reform and looking for new leadership to make sure that the Academy is acquiring a workforce that is well aware of what the conduct should be. So if you have thoughts about what we should do there.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, one of the biggest things we have to do for the workforce of the future is ensure that the workforce understands the future will be there. It's very difficult to attract people into the industry if they're afraid that a year or two, the ship that they signed on is going to be gone, they're not going to have a job. So building a stable, credible maritime industry that can produce a ladder for a career path that's going to be around for a while, I think is one of the biggest things we have to do. We have to do a better job at educating the American student body about what's out there, that the maritime industry is just a good place for good jobs. And training programs. We tend to often focus straight on officers like Kings Point, but ships don't run without unlicensed as well. And so we need to make sure that that pipeline is also operating the way it should. Full marks to the unions, the SIU and in particular are very good at that sort of stuff, but we need to support them. I know that the SHIPS Act and I think the Waterfront Workers Act both have training money in there for that. In terms of Kings Point, we have a long way to go to get Kings Point fixed, no question about it.
You're referring to now on the sexual assault issues?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And overall, at the end of the day, Kings Point is an academic institution. We need to make sure that when both students and instructors walk through the gates of that place, they're proud to be there. I think that has a lot to do with the attitude of people. I think that the discipline instilled in the regimental system could probably stand a little bit of tightening up, and I think that will help. But at the end of the day, it's common sense. It's making sure that people treat each other with respect. That's not that hard of a concept, and I know it sounds stupid because we have had failures in the past, but we have to really hammer that home at sea, at shore, period.
We'll look for your leadership on that. Dr. Petty, if you could comment on support for PAC-SURF, stock assessments, and a NOAA Organic Act.
Yes, Senator, thank you for the question. First of all, stock assessment. That is a high priority for the administration, along with the executive order that prioritizes the stock assessment. I look forward to working with now confirmed Undersecretary Neil Jacobs on specifically implementing and making sure we have the resources and personnel to get those stock assessments done.
Okay, PAC-SURF you support, NOAA
Yes.
Organic Act?
Yes. Absolutely, Senator. Looking forward to working with you on,
Okay.
Yep.
A little reverse approach than what Senator Cruz asked, is we need the Federal Maritime Commission, obviously working with a MARAD nominee here to assure that both American consumers and American exporters are not taken advantage of. So, Mr. Harvey, it was good to hear your detail of experience on the technology side. Mr. Carmel and I had a great conversation about blockchain and immutable manifests and great things that might help us accelerate our leadership position on supply chain issues. But you also mentioned unfair and deceptive practices, and that clearly was what was happening to us, and I don't think most Americans understand. We don't control shipping today. I mean, we control calling on our ports, but these are basically big international carriers that tried to dictate to us what business was going to be like. So thank God we passed a new law and gave more authority to the commission. So what do you have in mind when you're looking at unfair and deceptive practices? Again, when we're going to try to build a maritime nation again under the leadership here that we're talking about, but we also have to show to the international community that is calling on our ports that we're going to be serious about unsubstantiated increases in rates or practices where they're leaving us high and dry on the docks with our U.S. products.
That's where the reviewing of the agreements, watching the alliances that operate to make sure that there aren't anti-competitive practices, because it's a unique, I'll use this word again, ecosystem in the maritime industry where there's very limited amount of providers and agreements that on one hand could be helpful to, making the system more efficient and making capacity more available, but they're also very capable of becoming anti-competitive. And
So you're I just want to clarify,
sorry.
so you're not afraid to use that authority in ways when you see problems that
No, ma'am.
exist? Okay.
I'm not, and when I saw it in the securities industry, now regulations is an important part of what we do in rulemaking, but I would say that nothing gets a industry member's attention like an enforcement action, and when that's necessary, I used to have to, I was on the other end of those, so I know when those get filed, it's attention getting for sure.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take whatever comments you have on that, Ms. DiBella, for the record, but I appreciate you've had more involvement in this, so I think we have some understanding of your record. Thank you.
Oh, sure, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I would say, that the carriers make the market, so it's a bit of a balance, that we have to have with them. I appreciate that, their role in all of this. However, we do need to and do provide some good oversight, and I hope for additional transparency that relationship will shall we say, improve, and we'll be able to have a more efficient system.
Thank you. Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Carmel, as you know, there are 3 programs that ensure U.S. flag vessels are available for the sea lift: the Jones Act, Cargo Preference, and the Maritime Security Program. What importance do you put on those programs?
All 3 programs are critical to sustaining the fleet we have now. They're not on their own going to help us grow it, but they are critical to making sure we don't go backwards.
Do you have any ideas on ways that MARAD could possibly improve on those programs?
Those programs themselves do what they're intended to do. The Maritime Security Program, one of the problems with the Maritime Security Program that we experience, and it's actually at the end of the day, it's also the Tanker Security Program, which is another one, rely on government preference cargo. At the end of the day, it's not about ships, it's about cargo. Our whole industry is built on cargo. If we don't have enough cargo, how many ships we have is irrelevant. And so we need to do a better job of generating cargo. Now, for the Maritime Security Program and the Tanker Security Program, we're talking about preference cargoes. There's not enough of that around really to scale either program. So we also need to find ways to generate cargo that does not come from the American taxpayer. We need to find, if we want the size of fleet that we are talking about, we are going to have to get our fleet back to carrying the nation's commerce, not just focused on the military.
Okay, in any potential conflict, though, our sea lift assets will be indispensable so that we can take care of our forces, so that material can transit to the theater of operations. The ready reserve force fleet is a key component of our sea lift capability, but because of systemic underinvestment, its readiness has suffered. Would you agree with that?
No question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Given your operational and your corporate experience, how can MARAD work better with industry to revive that ready reserve force? Does that
There
go
are,
back to your cargo that?
Well, there are two programs in place right now. One is, which is still being, I guess, working through the legislative process, which is building ships for the ready reserve force. The other one is the buy used new ships. That puts a Band-Aid on the problem. That gets ships into the fleet relatively quickly. But there's still ships that sit at the dock and don't really do anything.
Do you think you would need any additional authorities to better execute that recapitalization of that force?
I would have to get in the building and understand what MARAD is doing on that now, but what we are doing right now is heading down the same path we've always headed down and got us to where we are today.
Okay, thank you, sir. The FMC has undertaken significant efforts to enhance port efficiency and has taken a closer look at detention practices. The FMC can play a crucial role in improving port operations. Ms. DiBella and Mr. Harvey have confirmed what specific criteria will you prioritize to ensure agreements align with FMC standards and facilitate efficient freight movement overall?
I'll start this time. Thank you for the question. In regards to detention and truly any matter, I think taking, once confirmed and once I'm able to be briefed fully on many of these issues, I believe, again, going back to more transparency, understanding the realities of why certain cargoes, certain containers are left and are resulting in such detention and demurrage charges. I think uncovering really where the inefficiencies are, truly, and going back to what I had said before, looking at things systematically. Going back to the supply chain crisis, the issues at the waterfront, were largely contributed to the interior. So it's truly taking a very comprehensive look at every aspect of the supply chain and understanding exactly where the issue is created, and taking action in that regard. And it could be elsewhere. It could not be, maybe not in the interior. It could be far off in another 3,000 miles away in the ocean. But it's just really taken a very comprehensive look.
Thank you. Mr. Harvey, anything to add?
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, I'm an investor in technology for the state of Florida, and I want to ensure that regulations that are coming from the FMC encourage innovation. Some of these problems, especially in detention, can be solved by, for instance, we invested in the last mile delivery, entity, and that is multimodal. So that's a ship, that's a rail, that's a truck. And so I think that if we can create fair and competitive markets, private capital is going to flow and help to solve some of these problems, whether it's fixing these types of problems or even the larger problems with port renovation and upgrading, which a huge capital lift there that probably is not just for government alone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to all four of you for being nominated. I look forward to getting you confirmed quickly and expeditiously. So, Mr. Conrad, I'll start with you. What's the state of our maritime industry in America? How would you assess that competitively? Are we in the top 10, bottom 10, middle of the pack?
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that question a lot. It's something I consider, I lose sleep over all the time. I'm not even sure we're on the scale.
And so the next question is, what happened? Because that wasn't always the case. You go back to the 40s, and we won World War II because we could produce a lot of ships. So what happened from then till now?
Yes, Senator, that's correct. Actually, though, as I mentioned in the opening, we've been fighting this for 150 years. The first stab at trying to repair a badly damaged merchant marine happened with the House Select Committee on the Merchant Marine in 1870. And we've been repeating cycles of this ever since. So we've had a long history of not getting it right. Now, to answer your question directly, that is true. We did a great job of cycling up for World War II because we had the industrial capacity to do it. Our merchant marine was in tough shape prior to that. Prior to World War I, we had to cycle up, but we did it late. Most of the ships we built for the World War I surge were too late to be delivered to matter for the war effort. World War II, we had to cycle up again. Interestingly enough, Mr. Kaiser was a dam builder and is the one that built the ships. So we did a great job, but we had we knew how to build things then. That's the difference. We knew how to build things. Our industrial capacity hadn't rotted yet. After World War II, and by the way, there's a problem. Every time we do this, every time we cycle up, build a lot of stuff for a war, and then the war's over, then we're faced with what do we do with all these ships? And that creates a boom and bust cycle that's not healthy. But we let our industrial capacity rot again, except this time we let it rot too far. And I personally don't believe we could do that again. I don't believe we have the industrial capacity we need right now to be able to do that. And I think that it manifests itself all throughout the maritime industry. And in many ways, it ripples out into our U.S. economy. It is imperative that in order to get the maritime industry right, we need to fix the underlying maritime infrastructure and industrial capacity. At the end of the day, wealth of a country is not about how many dollars are in the bank. The wealth of a country is our capability to build our own future for tomorrow. And we have sacrificed that, and we need to get it back. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate that. And obviously, all of us can sense that's really a matter of national security. Mr. Harvey, there's obviously ports in Florida and Texas and the East Coast, the West Coast, although don't hold my breath for new ports going into the West Coast with the current political environment. They may find a frog that may have passed by that land and prohibit any construction there. But there is a place called the Great Lakes. President Trump did not name them, so I don't want to get my Democrat colleagues upset, but they are a huge natural resource for this country. In Lake Erie, we have the Port of Cleveland. Could you talk about what you're going to do to make certain that we revitalize the Great Lakes shipping industry?
Thank you, Senator. As I said in my opening, that the Great Lakes region is has a special place to me because that's where I grew up and actually watched sort of the deindustrialization of that part of the country. And I think there's no way to restore America's maritime dominance without, restoring our industrial dominance. So I think we just have to be aware that everything that we do at the FMC in terms of rules, regulations, not only helps the international carriers, but really focuses also on what's happening on the Great Lakes.
Yeah, because we compare the Port of Miami, for example.
Yes, sir.
Where you have these monstrosity giant cruise ships. You're not going to get a lot of industrial capacity there, nor would it be logistically feasible. But when you bring things into places like Cleveland, it's dramatically easier to feed our industrial base. And I just want to make sure we don't have a Florida-centric or Southern-centric view of this, that we understand how critical the Great Lakes are. So I want it to have a special place in your heart, but also in your mind and in your pocketbook, so that we're looking at the Great Lakes and refurbishing that. So I have your commitment, both of you, Ms. DiBella as well. Yes.
My response to that, I would take the same approach that we did at the state level when thinking about where the export needs are and perhaps ways that we could potentially help. Where are the bottlenecks in the system? Where's overregulation? Are there issues with Canada? Or, are there trying to enhance the capabilities in and around that region that would utilize the resources that are there, the infrastructure that's there in order to export and also import. So obviously, I believe there's a lot of agriculture that comes in and out of there that would support, the middle America. So it's really examining the supply chain, once again, what is dominating, from an import and export activity, and how can we help?
All right, maybe we'll get you all to Cleveland after we confirm you.
That would be great.
Just remember, Cleveland on the lakes is much earlier than Minnesota.
Senator Rosen.
Well, and I appreciate the great 10,000 lakes in Minnesota and all the other great lakes. I don't have shipping lakes, but I do have really great lakes in Lake Tahoe and Lake Mead, so I'm just going to give them a shout out anyway, even though there may not be a subject of this. We got good lakes all around our country. Thank you all to the witnesses for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this hearing. I'm going to talk about something that we all care about every single day when we wake up. The first thing you think about, well, after the coffee, of course, is maybe what's the weather going to be today? How am I going to get to work? How am I going to drive? How am I going to get there? What am I going to wear? So over the last several years, we've seen academic institutions, private companies incorporate machine learning, artificial intelligence into their weather and ocean forecasting products. For example, the Desert Research Institute in Nevada is improving wildfire smoke emission predictions using machine learning algorithms. So, Dr. Petty, what roles do you see machine learning or artificial intelligence playing in natural disaster climate forecasting models, both as it relates to water management, we're on the water theme with all the lakes, but climate forecasting and modeling, water management, and NOAA's overarching mission, please?
Yes, Senator, right off the bat, I think they're critical. I think that's where we need to be moving more toward expansion in that capability of technology and being able to not only look at past history and the science to feed into these models and the technology for machine learning and artificial intelligence.
So that's great, and so we do know that these advancements are going to be continue to be critical. So it's why I introduced the Smart Weather Forecasting for Water Management, Farming, and Ranching Act. It's going to carry out pilot projects for better sub-seasonal to seasonal forecasting, particularly for water management. It's a huge issue in our country. Too much, too little. So, Dr. Petty, if confirmed, would you advocate for NOAA to invest and expand research on sub-seasonal to seasonal forecasting?
Senator, I look forward to getting into the building to really look at the priorities, but I probably will be able to confidently say that will be a high priority from just listening to the hearing that Dr. Jacobs had with you about a month and a half ago.
And please welcome you to our office to continue the conversation.
I would enjoy that very much.
Thank you. I'm going to keep on weather a little bit because NOAA regional climate centers are key in collecting and distributing raw climate data to support decision makers as they grapple with extreme weather events that threaten health, safety, agriculture, infrastructure, travel. In Nevada, again, we're very thankful for our very own Desert Research Institute, which serves as one of only 6 regional climate centers nationally. So, Dr. Petty, if confirmed, will you commit to supporting our regional climate centers?
Senator, I'm actually very familiar with the center in your great state, and so I look forward to, first of all, getting into the office, getting a complete review by the National Weather Service and their team, so that we can really look at the priorities, implementing new technologies, and the big part, which is the collaboration and making sure that transparency is getting to all the different communities that have to deal directly with weather.
Thank you, and I'm going to kind of stay on this because even though we do have our lakes and rivers, but we are a landlocked state, of course. But we often experience severe weather events that originate in the coastal areas of the Pacific, California, Oregon, Washington, right? So what do you see as some of the challenges that coastal and marine ecosystems are facing during these extreme weather events? And how do you think the regional climate centers, do you have an opinion about how they might manage going forward, how we might help predict and really mitigate some of the impact?
Yes, Senator, I think right off the bat, the understanding of both the estuaries, the ecosystems that are not only coastal but inland, all of those play off of each other, and the importance of making sure that there's transparency and collaboration, not only with the federal government, but with the state governments. But then even more so with my experience is that all of the agencies are working together. Interior, Army Corps of Engineers, Department of Energy, as well as Commerce are all on the same page, working together.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that you're interested in collaborating with everyone. I do know that over 15% of NOAA's workforce has been slashed. That's really distressing to us, given the importance of these positions towards researching, forecasting, communicating dangerous weather conditions. And so I guess I have a few seconds. You can just ask, how will you ensure that you have enough staff to accurately predict, communicate weather information, do the important research that we rely on for so many sectors? Like I said, agriculture, transportation, farming, you name it.
Yes, Senator, fully recognizing all of the other agencies that utilize NOAA's weather service is the important part. But for my part on prioritizing and maintaining to ensuring that that research is focused, responsive, and looking for public need of what they're specifically needing to address. So that will be my commitment to you on what we'll work on with the staff within NOAA.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator.
Well, congratulations to all of you on your nomination. Mr. Carmel, I believe your nomination represents an important milestone for MARAD. Our country is just now waking up to an important situation that we put ourselves in regarding our capacity to build and operate ships here in America. As a Merchant Marine Academy graduate, one of the youngest captains of a commercial ship in recent history, and a senior executive in one of the world's largest shipping lines, you have a unique experience and a perspective that you can bring to bear on the challenges we face and a familiarity with the commercial industry that we desperately need at this time. The President has made building ships in America a priority, and I'm glad that he has. I have bipartisan legislation with Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, the Ships for America Act, that would set the conditions for restoring American dominance. Would you please give me your assessment, Mr. Carmel, of the state of commercial shipping, briefly, and shipbuilding in America, and how the SHIPS Act and the President's plan will get us back on the right track?
Thank you very much, Senator. That's a great question. The state of our shipping and shipbuilding industry is, starting with shipping, is basically on a lifeline. We do not carry our own commerce, flat out. That's not what a merchant marine is supposed to be for carrying the nation's commerce, and we need to find a way to get back there. That, to me, is extremely important. In terms of shipbuilding, our shipbuilding industry is very narrowly focused on a very niche market. We're not even comparable to international scale shipbuilding. I know that the SHIPS Act says we can't build ships at scale. I would go a step further and say that for ships that matter in international trade, we cannot build them at all. We're just simply, that capacity just doesn't exist here. It needs to be. We need to bring it back. I think the SHIPS Act is a great thing because it addresses the pillars that we need to do that. The executive order gave us the vision of what needs to be done. The SHIP Act gives us the levers and the resources to do it, and that's what's important. One of the reasons we failed over the years is instability. The SHIPS Act gives us that too.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, the numbers are pretty disturbing. China has, the numbers vary, but roughly 5,500 ships that can operate in ocean level shipping. We have much less than that, 80 roughly. And we have the capacity, it's not to suggest we do, we have the capacity to build only 5 a year. So we need to up our game. The SHIPS Act would help us build 250 over the next 10. If you're confirmed, and I think you will be, you'll play a key role in implementing the president's agenda, which you reference. For MARAD, what are the key parts of that agenda, if you could quickly itemize them, that are necessary to restore our shipbuilding capacity? And if you could speak to how the SHIPS Act might fit into that picture, that would also be helpful.
Thank you, Senator. One is the financial framework and structure. The Maritime Trust Fund is a great start at that, so we need a financial structure. We need demand generation. We need to come up with a better way of finding something for our ships to do. We need workforce development. The SHIPS Act addresses all those things. We need innovation. Again, the SHIPS Act actually has areas that overlap workers on the waterfront or waterfront workers. There's areas that those areas can work together. Innovation is key to getting us out of where we are. So those things are just a few of the things that MARAD has the handle on that can implement the SHIPS Act.
Thank you, sir. With our roughly 1 minute left, maybe you could paint a picture. What will happen if we don't pass the SHIPS Act? Will you still be able, in this new position, for which I suspect you will be confirmed, will you still be able to implement the president's vision effectively?
We will. The SHIPS Act is critical to being able to do it effectively and quickly. If the SHIPS Act is not passed, we will still work on that agenda. We will do what we can, assuming I get confirmed, to implement the vision, but it will go a lot slower. It will not be as robust, and most efficient. Most importantly, it will be fragile. We run the risk of doing what we've done in the past, start down a path, and the whole thing falls apart. We need a way to make this permanent so that it's codified and we don't go through a cycle of start and stop. And the SHIPS Act does that.
Thank you, Mr. Carmel. Thank you, all of you. Senator Klobuchar, you're recognized for questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to all of you. You are tasked with strengthening our maritime industry, ensuring the U.S. maintains a resilient supply chain, protecting our water resources, and that, of course, includes the Great Lakes. So that's a lot on your shoulders. So in 2022, Senator Thune and I passed the Ocean Shipping Reform Act, which strengthened oversight of ocean shipping, improved supply chain efficiency, and it brought some meaningful results in terms of getting some lower rates because we leveraged the power of that agency. The law basically tells the foreign-owned shipping alliances to do 3 things: charge fair rates, stop profiting off our backs, and fill your empty crates with American-made products. After we passed it, and I don't think it was because the rules hadn't even taken effect, but it was hanging out there, the shipping rates fell 85% in that year. There were a number of factors, but we were clearly serious when we passed a bill like that, that we were going to go farther if it didn't get done. So I guess I'd start with you, Ms. DiBella and Mr. Harvey. I told you about the bill, and if confirmed, will you commit to vigorously enforcing the Ocean Shipping Reform Act?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Mr. Harvey?
Yes, ma'am. I think important compliance functions, investigations, and enforcement are critical, and that's probably why they got the message, but the message has to continue to be sent, so definitely.
Okay. The Great Lakes St. Lawrence Seaway System moves over 200 million tons of cargo each year. As Mr. Harvey, you mentioned in your testimony, the Great Lakes shipping industry supports tens of thousands of jobs directly and is a vital economic engine for cities, towns, and people of the region. How will you make sure the FMC supports the needs of our inland seas, not just those on the coast?
Thank you for that question. I think that we will continue to investigations like we've done with Canada and the ballast water regulations, and to make sure that, American shippers and Lakers aren't harmed. I think the FMC has been able to carve out some exemptions for some of that, but I think, the battle goes on.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess I'll turn to you, Mr. Carmel, and I would note the Duluth Port is an incredible place. What were you going to say?
It is. I've actually been to Duluth.
Yeah. Was it warm?
No, but I was representing a paper company, so I had to be
Oh,
there
yeah.
anytime,
Well,
so.
of course, that's some of the shipping that goes on there, iron ore. I mean, it's kind of an incredible place, Duluth.
It is.
That port, and we're working very hard on things, as I see Senator Sullivan, like icebreakers and other things that are necessary to keep that Great Lakes shipping lane strong and open. So along those lines, Mr. Carmel, when shippers are delayed by port congestion, inland freight bottlenecks, outdated infrastructure, products don't arrive on time, businesses suffer, costs go up. How will you work to strengthen maritime and multimodal supply chains, resilience, and efficiency?
Thank you, Senator. One of the problems that we had during the supply chain crisis was surge and stop. We need to have a stable demand, predictable demand. We need to be able to manage flows through our ports so that we don't have too much stuff trying to go at one time and then not enough stuff going at others. So that's across a number of activities. Certainly, I think we can use information better than we use now. That, to me, would be a big one.
Very good, thank you. And then, Mr. Petty, we care a lot about NOAA and weather in Minnesota. How do you plan to recruit qualified employees? We're obviously concerned. I'll ask you two separate questions just because my time's running out here. And then also, could you look into the Minnesota Sea Grant? It is a research and education program that supports fisheries, tourism. I mentioned the Great Lakes, but we also, as Senator Rosen mentioned, we have 15,000 lakes, not just 10,000 like on our license plate. And could you talk about both those things?
Yes, Senator, thank you. Lots of good questions, hitting your Sea Grant question as well. I do look forward to getting into the department and taking a look at that. I know specifically there's the priority areas, but that partnership and that collaboration that can take place with institutions, researchers, play a vital part within NOAA. And I look forward to working with you so that we can continue that collaboration. With regards to the other areas of the National Weather Service, the importance of staff, it really gets back to making sure that the priorities with what the mission calls for within health and safety and resources within NOAA, and we are delivering the technical and the advanced science so that decisions can be made by multiple agencies and states and resources.
And then you can just look into this later, but the Great Lakes Restorative Initiative, this is in Representative Stauber's district, right? The Lake Superior, the surrounding things, always been bipartisan with, as you just heard from some of the Great Lakes senators on the Republican side. So please keep that going strong.
Thank you, Senator. I sure will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar, and I'm always reminded, we have a little competition, friendly competition with my friend from Minnesota and other states. So when she talks about Minnesota's 10,000 lakes or 15,000 lakes, I like to remind people that we have over 3 million lakes in Alaska. So it's just it's by a magnitude of...
But most of them constantly frozen.
But that's true, but 3 million lakes. So just want you to remember that. Maybe we'll put that on our license plate too someday. But I want to thank everybody. These are really important positions. And I want to begin by covering an executive order that President Trump issued on day one of his administration. It's called Unleashing Alaska's Extraordinary Resource Potential. It's very long. There's the president's signature. We're the only state in the union. It's got our own executive order from this administration. And it says that it is the policy of the United States to fully avail itself of Alaska's vast lands and resources for the benefit of the nation and the American citizens who call Alaska home. So I want to begin by getting to all the witnesses a commitment, if confirmed, I think you're all going to get confirmed, to come up to Alaska soon after your confirmation to see these extraordinary resource potential. You can come in the winter when it's cold or the summer to do some fishing, but can I get your commitment? We'll start with you, Dr. Carmel.
Thank you, Senator. Actually, I look forward to going back to Alaska. I've been there many times, and I'd love to come back. Thank you, sir.
Right.
I echo that. I've been there once on a layover, a very brief layover, and I'd like to be back for a lot longer.
Great.
Yes, sir, I agree to support that. I've been to Alaska with my wife, fishing the Kenai and other great areas in your
Good.
state, and we love it.
Great. Dr. Petty.
Absolutely.
You're a UAF grad, so
That's
we're very
correct.
proud of you. I think you might be the first UAF grad to hold this position. We got to double check that, so we're excited for you to get back to Alaska.
Excellent.
Great. Let me, one of the elements of this executive order, and you're already hearing it a lot, is the EO directs federal agencies to streamline permitting and accelerate approvals of critical infrastructure projects in Alaska. And yet, we continue to see lengthy and unnecessary delays. Let me give you one that's kind of MARAD and NIMS. It's a MARAD grant for the port of Adak, which we're going to be doing a lot with. We have in the defense bill starting to work to reopen the military base in Adak out on the Aleutian Island chain. Very strategic, but also important for fisheries. This grant, the MARAD grant, has been stalled for months while NIMS completes its biological opinion. Formal consultations began in June, but NIMS didn't consider the application until late July. It's since reassigned staff to start all over again, has told the people of Adak that maybe they'll get it out by December. Maybe that'll slip to next year because of Federal Register timing. Dr. Petty, this is classic, my view, classic deep state. No offense, you know, I like all my constituents, but there are a lot of federal employees who would love to slow roll everything in Alaska, right? The President of the United States said, enough, we're done doing that, in Alaska especially. So I need your commitment, if confirmed, and you're going to get confirmed, I'm a strong supporter of yours, to kind of give NIMS a little bit of a kick in the behind, saying we're not doing this anymore. The Biden years of delaying, crushing projects in Alaska because far-left environmental groups wanted that, they're over. Can you commit to me to get in a culture of accountability and urgency with permitting offices throughout NOAA, if confirmed?
Senator, simply, yes, I look forward to it.
In that one in particular, but all the other ones as well?
Yes, sir.
No more delays. We're not doing 7-year permits anymore, 8-year permits.
Or longer.
It's ridiculous. It's killing the country. And it particularly kills my state, which is why the president on day one said, we're done with trying to crush Alaska federal agencies. You're going to move forward. So we need that leadership. I appreciate that. Let me turn to another executive order, again from the Trump administration. This is restoring American seafood competitiveness. I think Secretary Lutnick is off to a great start. We had the seafood roundtable that we talked about recently with all the congressional delegation, Alaska stakeholders. We have Administrator Jacobs. You know, my state, again, is the superpower of seafood. Over 2/3 of all seafood harvested in America, subsistence, sport, commercial, comes from Alaska. That's almost $2 billion of that is exported. Almost $16 billion is contributed to the U.S. economy from Alaska's seafood industry. 1.6 million jobs nationwide. But you've heard it from Senator Cantwell. Unlike a lot of industries in America, the CHIPS Act, look, all these computer chips companies get $250 billion in subsidies. Our seafood industry needs 2 things from the federal government: surveys and timely promulgation of regulations to open fisheries. That's it. And that's under you. and the surveys have not been going well. Can I get your commitment to get us back to the gold standard of serious surveys, but doing it in a way in which it's prioritized, and again, in a way in which it is promoted in the president's executive order on seafood competitiveness, in addition to his executive order on Alaska?
Well, Senator, I know you have that executive order memorized, and so.
And I want you to have it memorized.
That's right. I'm sure you do.
Both
And
of them, actually.
I look forward to working specifically with you and your outstanding staff who have incredible knowledge. So yes, looking forward to each one of those items.
Let me just get to one final one, and I'm going to turn it over to Senator Peters. Dr. Carmel, I think you and I are meeting later today in my office, so I'm looking forward to that. I have a whole bunch of questions for you and others for the record, but it goes to NOAA's budget that we need to get out here soon, their spend plan that includes, my understanding is 2 approved NOAA and OMB fishery disaster declarations and funds for the 2022 Yukon salmon, 2021 Upper Cook Inlet, and 2022 Kuskokwim salmon. Can you assure me that your first order of business will be the approval of these disaster funds and the recovery resources necessary?
Senator, I look forward to getting into the building and doing just that. I think even already confirming Dr. Jacobs and him watching today and hearing it loud and clear. So I look forward to working with you to move those areas that you've highlighted forward, whether it's the research gaps that are missing and even those surveys as well. So
Yeah, and we're going to do a lot together, as you and I talked about in my office yesterday, on the salmon challenges that we have.
Yes, sir.
Some of our salmon runs in Alaska are doing great. Sockeye salmon run in Bristol Bay. Some are doing horrible.
Yeah.
The King run on the Yukon and the Kuskokwim, very important to my constituents. Our legislation addresses that, but we have huge research gaps that we need to figure out and address. So I appreciate your commitment on that. I'll have some more questions for the record for the other witnesses. Thank you. And I'm now going to turn the entire hearing over to my Democratic colleagues. I hope they don't undertake some kind of coup on the Commerce Committee. So with that, Senator Markey, I think, or maybe Senator Peters. I'm sorry, Senator Peters.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Sullivan. Yeah, where's that gavel? You want to bring it right down here? And
Now, don't hold it for long, right?
oh, you got it right there. Senator Markey has it already. We're ready to roll. We're ready to roll.
You can go wherever you want.
Trust us, don't worry. Well, welcome to each of you. Welcome, congratulations on your nominations. Mr. Carmel, I'd like to start with a topic that I raised with Secretary Duffy at his nomination hearing. Ensuring both robust investment in our port infrastructure and the fair distribution across all regions in the country. As I'm sure you know, MARAD Port Infrastructure Development Program supports much needed investments in safety, efficiency, as well as reliability of our nation's ports. This sort of an investment is absolutely essential to ensuring that our manufacturers stay competitive and that the goods are reliably delivered to consumers across the Midwest, but also all across the entire nation. Program funding that has gone to our Great Lakes ports has provided a major boost, but that funding has been hard to come by, with the Great Lakes ports receiving as little as 2% of the funds in the past years. As a matter of fact, the Gulf ports haven't gotten a fair shake either. It's not just Great Lakes. Which is why my legislation to fix this funding disparity is co-sponsored by Senators Wicker and Cornyn, along with my fellow Great Lake colleagues, Senator Baldwin, Young, Duckworth, and Marino, all bipartisan support for these. This funding disparity is simply unacceptable. And when I raised this issue with Secretary Duffy, to his credit, he fully agreed that it's unacceptable. And he committed to work with me to ensure robust and fair funding for Great Lakes ports going forward. So, Mr. Carmel, do you commit to the same? Specifically, if confirmed, one, will you support robust funding for our ports through the Port Infrastructure Development Program?
Thank you, Senator. If I am given the honor of being confirmed, I look forward to working with you to advance that agenda. Yes, sir.
So would you work to ensure the funding is distributed fairly so that our Great Lakes as well as Gulf ports are not left at a competitive disadvantage? And will you commit to awarding those grants so that critical ongoing investments can proceed?
I would need to get in the building. I'm not that familiar with the PDIP program at all. I've never worked in it, but I would commit to working with you to make sure it's administered fairly and effectively.
So you'd fully support fair funding, making sure Gulf and Great Lakes ports, and you understand the importance of those to our nation's economy?
Absolutely. I've been in and out of Great Lake ports, most of my sailing career, and I understand deeply the importance of the Great Lakes ports to the heartland manufacturing. So yes.
Right. Especially with overtaxed ports on the coast, the East Coast, coming up the St. Lawrence Seaway and into the Great Lakes can create a lot of opportunities for further efficient movement of goods.
Yes.
Good. Mr. Petty, my next question is for you. Harmful algal blooms pose a serious risk to water quality, tourism, as well as public health in the Great Lakes. To give you a sense of just how devastating these outbreaks can be, a toxic algal bloom in Lake Erie left residents in Toledo without safe drinking water for 3 full days recently. NOAA's research and forecasting capabilities are absolutely essential for early detection, for mitigation strategies, and long-term solutions that will protect our communities as well as our ecosystems from future outbreaks. However, despite unwavering bipartisan support for these activities here in Congress, this administration has sought drastic cuts to NOAA that would jeopardize this critical mission. So, Mr. Petty, if confirmed, how will you ensure that NOAA can support and meet the growing needs for harmful algal bloom detection and forecasting to ensure safe, clean water for Great Lakes communities, agriculture, and industry? And as you well know, millions and millions of people rely every day on water from the Great Lakes to drink and for these other key functions. And as part of your answer, could you speak to the importance of having sufficient staff and funding at NOAA to be able to carry out these important activities?
Yes, Senator, thank you for that question. HABs is an issue that needs to be fully addressed in many ways. The commitment that I will make for sure is that we are getting the best available science for those areas to address these HABs issues. It's not only Great Lakes, but it's multiple areas up and down our coastal states, as well as the relationship that we have with other agencies that also get resources and funding specifically. That's the area that is the priority of making sure that all the different agencies, Army Corps, Interior, have the resources that they need to directly address these HABs issues, including the Department of Agriculture.
So in terms of staff at NOAA, if there are shortfalls, you will be an aggressive advocate to make sure you have the resources and the people to actually do that job?
Yes, looking forward to being able to get into the building and making sure that the priorities and that we have all the critical staff to meet the mission that you have set forth.
Very good. Well, thank you. Well, I now turn the floor over to Senator Markey, who will also have the exclusive control of the gavel at this point.
So hope you packed a lunch because, thank you, Senator Peters. Seaport projects create good paying union jobs for Americans and develop infrastructure that lasts for decades. These projects take years of expensive planning, but they bring huge economic benefits to both blue and red states. If confirmed, Mr. Carmel, you would be in charge of the Port Infrastructure Development Program, and this is an incredibly important program that delivers major support for the ports to keep our nation running. But in August of this year, the Trump administration arbitrarily canceled millions of dollars of grants under this program, pulling the rug out from port projects that were construction ready. Ports across America now cannot trust the federal government to support port projects based on the merits because they're getting canceled based on politics, Mr. Carmel. Mr. Carmel, do you believe that arbitrary and sudden cancellations of port infrastructure development grants decrease trust between ports and Maritime Administration?
Thank you, Senator. I am not familiar with the situation that you're talking about. I'm not familiar at all with the PDIP program, other than I know it exists. I've never worked in it. I would need to get into the building to understand what happened and why, and I can commit to you to working with you to sort things out. I can tell you that as a general rule, stability is important to our industry.
All right, well, we agree with that. And our MARAD administrator will have to grapple with the fact that right now our ports can no longer trust this administration to keep its word and protect their workers or their investments, to have stability, which just doesn't exist. It's a highly unstable environment. So, Mr. Carmel, do you believe it's appropriate for the administration to kill American maritime and construction jobs by canceling grant awards for political reasons?
Senator, I was not here then. I don't understand what happened. I would actually need to get into the building and sit with the Maritime Administration staff to understand what happened to be able to give you an answer to the question.
Well, I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think the 800 union workers in Massachusetts who aren't getting a paycheck thanks to the Trump administration think it's appropriate either. It's just arbitrary, it's capricious, it's political. That's what's happening. There's 800 people now without a job. Mr. Carmel, if confirmed, would you work to restore port infrastructure development program grants that were canceled despite the fact that the projects met all the terms of their grant agreements?
Thank you, sir. And again, if I'm given the honor of confirmation, I can commit to trying to understand a situation. I was not there. I don't understand what happened, and without having the facts, I really am not in a position to give an answer other than to say I would commit to learning about it.
So if we play politics with nonpartisan port infrastructure grants, it sets a terrible but a powerful precedent for administrations to come, that they can just move in politically and kill projects because they come under the control of Democratic states or, in the future, Republican states. And that's just a terrible precedent to be set in the first 10 months of the Trump administration, because it makes it very difficult to work on a bipartisan basis in Congress to support these agencies, because you're not sure that what you reach as an agreement is going to, in fact, be upheld, going to be agreed to. The great humorist Oscar Levant used to have a joke that covered this subject, that covers the era on which we're now working, which was, he would say, we'll double cross that bridge when we get to it. So you reach an agreement, you think everything's great, and then down the line, on a partisan basis, the Democratic projects get cut and the Republicans do not. So it just makes it harder for all of us to be able to operate in a world in which your word is your bond, that you get the benefit of the bargain that you gave and in return you got for your home state. But that whole era is now increasingly being viewed in a rearview mirror, because these are not hypothetical questions. These attacks already happened, taking paychecks out of workers' pockets and taking investment out of portside communities. And it is just unacceptable that the Trump administration is punishing communities just because they did not vote for him in 2024. It is just absolutely a destruction of the bipartisan construct of the United States Congress. Mr. Carmel, the Trump administration has told the country we are experiencing, quote, an energy emergency. Yet this administration is trying to kill offshore wind projects, destroy union jobs, and keep megawatts of clean power off the grid. So, Mr. Carmel, yes or no, do you believe that the offshore wind industry can contribute to the development of American ports and American shipping, create more American jobs, and also provide more megawatts for the grid?
Again, I was not involved in any of those discussions. I wasn't there. Energy policy is outside of my area of expertise, and so I would need to get in the building to understand the issues and where MARAD intersects with them to be able to give you an answer.
Well, you don't have to go in that building to know that electricity prices have gone up 10% since Donald Trump was sworn in this year. 10%. That's on the front page of newspapers across the country. That's dramatic, what is happening. Mr. Carmel, do you agree that it is not in the national interest to raise energy prices for households in the United States?
Again, Senator, energy policy in general is just not my swim lane, and so I'm not qualified to answer the question.
Well, ultimately, all of these coastal decisions are going to have an incredible impact on the electricity rates for families in our country. It's now increasing at triple the rate of inflation. And a lot of it is due to the energy policy of the Trump administration, the cancellation of offshore wind projects, and then the ripple effect that it has upon the electricity rates for everyone else within those communities that have been now denied those extra megawatts that have been turned into negawatts, just don't exist. Well, in addition to Trump administration's attacks on American-made wind industry, another driver of rising costs is the surge in fossil fuel exports. As administrator of MARAD, you would be directly responsible for making sure that deepwater export terminals do not receive permits if they are not in the national interest or consistent with national policy goals and objectives, including national security, energy sufficiency domestically, and environmental quality domestically. As you review these export terminal permits, I urge you to prioritize lower domestic costs, environmental protection, over the higher profits for oil and gas companies. And I urge you to do that, sir. It's an important part of your responsibility. And I would say, as now we're exporting upwards of 15% of all of our natural gas overseas, the companies get a bigger price for it once it hits the open market and get it in a ship and get it off our shore, but it has a dramatic impact on the price of natural gas here. For the remaining natural gas becomes much more expensive because you've reduced it by 15% to sell it overseas. So that then impacts small businesses, it impacts consumers all across our nation. Dr. Petty, two questions to you. Because of DOGE and Trump, we're losing invaluable research and fisheries expertise throughout the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Dr. Petty, do you agree to support the Northeast Fisheries Science Center and the important work that it does if you are confirmed?
Senator, thank you. It's an important question. For sure, with NOAA Fisheries, the whole northeastern part of the Atlantic and the fisheries aspect, we have great staff up there that are doing amazing work and jobs up there. My priority is to making sure that they continue to do their work and that they're doing it with all the resources that they have available to them.
Do you agree that it is critical to protect the NOAA scientists so that they can continue their work on fisheries issues?
Senator, I take seriously the scientific integrity of making sure that we are providing the best available science and that the scientists have the resources that they have to make sure that they get their work done that Congress has given them direct mission to do.
Well, I would invite you to come to visit important NOAA facilities in Massachusetts.
I look forward to that.
If you are confirmed.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. I appreciate that.
We would look forward to that. So, Mr. Carmel, Ms. DiBella, Mr. Harvey, Dr. Petty, my final question is required of all nominees. If confirmed, do you pledge to work collaboratively with this committee to provide thorough and timely responses to the committee's requests and to appear before the committee when requested?
Yes, Senator, I do.
Yes, Senator, you have my word.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you. So I have 16 letters of support from various organizations for Mr. Carmel's, Ms. DiBella's, and Dr. Petty's nominations, and I ask unanimous consent to have those letters inserted in the hearing record without objection, so ordered. Senators will have until the close of business on October 24th to submit questions for the record. The nominees will have until the close of business on October 27th to respond to the questions which are going to be given to you. That concludes today's hearing, and with that, the committee stands adjourned.